In my view, the Ta-152 was every bit as good as any of its Allied piston engine counterparts, and from some aspects, better than most. It was unfortunate for the Jagdflieger, but undoubtedly fortunate for the Allies that it arrived on the scene too late to play any serious role in the air war. I have little doubt that it was capable of doing all that the Germans claimed for it. In the closing stages of the war in Europe, the Luftwaffe had been working on a way to mitigate what they saw as the impending participation of the Boeing B-29 Superfortress into the theater, with its advanced pressurization system and ability to fly at extremely high altitudes. The Luftwaffe was already experiencing a waning ability to contend with the highly performant and long-range Allied escort fighters. There was dire need of a high-altitude interceptor capable of bomber interception and dogfighting respectively. Development of the Ta-152 and all its variants was based on the fundamental design of the Focke-Wulf FW-190 Anton series. Powered by the BMW 801 radial engine, the design of the Ta-152 by Professor Kurt Tank developed very quickly and so differed from the original design that it became a completely new fighter aircraft. As with other innovative developments by the German aviation industry in the final years of the war, the comment "too little and too late" also applies to the Ta-152. Production of Germany's first dedicated high-altitude fighter was initiated in the late autumn of 1944, but was halted soon afterwards by the total collapse of the armaments industry. As a result, less than 70 Ta-152s were produced in total, and an even smaller number were operational at any one time with units who were equipped with them. Ironically, this purpose-built high-altitude interceptor, which was intended to counter the B-29, which never made an appearance in Europe after all, wound up being used at low and medium altitudes, running airfield defense missions or short-range combat patrols in a futile attempt to disrupt the total air superiority of the Allied air forces, who moved with near impunity over the continent. One such pilot was Willi Reschke of Jagdgeschwader 301, who credits the capabilities and flying characteristics of the Ta-152 as the reason he survived the impossible odds in the final and climactic battles of the Second World War. He recalls in Dietmar and Harmann's book Focke-Wulf Ta-152 the story of the Luftwaffe high-altitude fighter. These were probably the Stabschwarm's most difficult days, and we were only able to survive them because the Ta-152's climbing and turning abilities were so exceptionally good. I had experienced all the highs and lows of both Jagdgeschwader 301 and 302 since June 1944, and I would have been happy if I had always had available such a machine during my missions and air battles. What follows is a transcript taken from an interview with Reschke, in which he discusses his impressions and experiences flying the Ta-152 into combat and gives his perspective on how it compares to Allied fighters. I was in England after the war, and I contacted some British World War II pilots, including the test pilot who flew my Ta-152H, the fighter I regarded as my life insurance policy, and the reason I survived the war. We only had 2 losses in our squadron after all. But when I talked with the British test pilot about which aircraft was better, between the Ta-152 or the Hawker Tempest, we could not agree. In his opinion, the Tempest was better. But I said it was very easy for me to shoot down a Tempest. I had a dogfight with one, and it was only at 150 feet of altitude. I cannot say whether the Spitfire was better. I had no dogfight with her. But with Mustangs, Tempests, and Yaks, I had many. My Ta-152 Green 9 was captured by British forces and brought to Farnborough, while another 152 Green 4 was sent to the United States. While in Britain, I asked, "What did you do with my Ta-152?" And the answer I was given was that it had been scrapped. To this day, I wonder why they scrapped this amazing aircraft. In my opinion, they could not stand it because she was better than their fighters. I maintain that the Ta-152 was the best single-engine piston fighter in World War II. Its top speed was 750 kilometers per hour, and climb rate was 15 meters per second to 7,000 meters, and 50 feet per second to 23,000 feet. No other fighter could do that. and she was extremely agile. When we first began to receive the Ta-152s on January 28, 1945, we thought to ourselves, what shall we do with this aircraft and its enormous wingspan? But after the first flight, we completely changed our opinion. She was extremely fast and agile, although sometimes the supercharger system was unreliable. I recall I was following a Mosquito once, and the second stage of the supercharger did not engage, so I could not reach maximum speed. The Ta-152 was undoubtedly better than the Dora 9. She could outturn the Dora easily, and it was better than every enemy fighter. It's worth noting that Eric Winkle-Brown tested the Ta-152 without two of its most critical design components, that being the GM-1 and MW-50 injection systems. Subsequently, the Ta-152 was never compared directly in combat trials with Allied fighters like other Axis designs were. This lends credence to Willi Reschke, who believes the Allies simply could not accept that Germany were able to produce such a capable fighter design so late in the war, suffering critical shortages of material of all kinds. Conversely, the Luftwaffe did test a captured Tempest at their Reschke testing center, and when examining their performance data, it puts the Ta-152 at a performance edge over the Tempest, even without its GM-1 and MW-50 systems active. Despite testing in these unfavorable conditions and absent any real hard comparative combat analysis, Eric Brown concluded that the Ta-152 was so closely comparative in so many aspects that it illustrated how closely parallel Britain and Germany were running in the development of piston-engine fighter technology. This is extraordinary on the part of the Germans, who, as mentioned, were suffering material shortages of all kinds, which significantly hindered their efforts in pushing the development of piston-engine fighter design. Indeed, Kurt Tank had originally intended the Ta-152 to be powered by a Daimler-Benz inline, but there were none available, so he had to supplement it. Couple this with the fact that Germany had vastly inferior fuel quality, and it is all the more incredible that an aircraft like this, in these circumstances, was able to contend with and best Allied designs produced in far more favorable conditions.